I think for some of us, when we hear stories from elders, hence this book, sage advice is about stories that elders, my parents, grandparents, gave me, passed on, lived it out. Those are memorable. I don't really remember what my grandma wore that day that I played catch when I was 4 years old.
Right.
But when she sat me down on the porch with the popsicle and told me, do you want to know what you're going to be when you grow up? Those stories hammer home. When we were having bagels, you asked me, tell me something about your grandparents, and I shared that story, and that's how the book started. They're so cemented, not just in our memory, but I think sometimes in our psyche, like our heart, like it just, I remember my grandpa said that, or my teacher, or youth pastor, or coach. And sometimes stories are warnings.
Sure, absolutely.
But, talking about veterans coming up and honoring them, those stories are beautiful. I happened to walk by a gentleman in the airport recently, and I said, hey, thanks for serving. How are you doing? He goes, thanks for asking. And he shared a story with the tip of his tongue. Now, he served in Korea. Now, he's an old gentleman, but I just saw his hat, and it had Korean, and it was the vessel. He served in the Navy. And he couldn't wait to tell me. And his wife was still with him, still alive. They had to be 80s or almost 90s.
Oh, sure.
I guess, And he had just that twinkle in his eye when he shared that story. Because I asked also.
Yes. Well, I think that's honoring, especially like you said, Veterans Day is coming up. Right.
I'll never forget honor.
Well, and what you're saying to them is, I want to know your story because your story is really a part of my story. I
like that.
If what you did for us to keep us safe, who knows where we would have been as a country had you not done what you did. And so I think going to the veterans and saying that there's, I want to hear your story. Somebody from the Korean War, that's a long time ago. Maybe nobody's asking you your stories anymore because they want to hear about the latest and greatest, the most modern things. Tell us about, your story. What happened then?
So he was drafted at 17 and a half because they knew the date was coming up and they were looking for guys. He was a high school junior or senior. We're talking today's high school junior or senior. But that back then, that's 70 some years ago, maybe. I'm just doing the quick math. And he was so honored, and his wife was patting him on the shoulder because she could tell he was going there. And it felt so good to hear his story. I didn't get to serve there, but I just thought it was cool that he wears his hat. It's a connection to what was important to him. His sacrifice, lost a lot of buddies, he told me. And that you don't forget that.
No.
And I think those stories are sometimes unforgettable, whether they're a lesson like, King David got from, that Bible story, or just even you talking with an employee or maybe a parishioner or a student at a school, where you're teaching. I just think it's so cool where stories expand. Hey, I'm Greg from the Craig and Greg Show. And if you've enjoyed this clip, please go for the full edition and subscribe so you get notified when we send another episode for you to be challenged as a leader.